Good evening.
Very good evening to all of you for joining in for today's meeting. So today we are talking and discussing about the early childhood education. In the previous classes, we learned about why should we educate, what is that we educate, how do we educate, right? When to educate, where to educate, who is that we have to educate, and whom to educate. And most importantly, how do we educate, right? These were some of the very important educative processes that we saw in our formal education. We saw there are different kinds of educations, formal educations and the informal education. Informal education is nothing but how children do get influenced by home or by the society that they actually live in. So we understood that there are three Latin words for education meaning. That was our education, wherein we teach and train. We also have another one that's considered to be as an educare, wherein we are not only educating, but we care for the children. That means to bring up the children, to raise the children, and to tell them what is right and what is wrong. So we are trying to educate the purpose of why we are doing this. And there's something called as educare. Educare is to bring forth. It's not only that you teach, you train, but also you would act. When I say acting, you would implement, you would adapt, you will bring up, you would raise to any particular situation that has been given, and you would make sure that the children are educated in that particular direction. So this was the wider meaning that we actually learnt about it, and we saw all these parameters. But coming down from there, even in our the next portion that we actually had was like we understand that children are like diamonds, correct? So the diamonds has multiple cuts. We all know that, right? It has multiple cuts. When I am turning the diamond, we can actually see different colors. The colors totally depends upon the angles at which you're actually seeing. So this is one of the proverbial saying that, the children are like diamonds. Just don't look at them from one particular angle, but try to see them in different angles. You never know, right? Because we can have a child being good in coloring. We can have a child who's really good in conversations. We might have children who are really good in sports. We do not know about that. So blindly, we cannot define this is what is education. So this is what even the people, all the great people, not only from India, from the West also say that education has different perceptions, right? And everyone is getting influenced in their own way. Like how Shweta gets influenced is totally different than how Purni gets influenced. We never know. And Anita's perception towards education is totally different. So, as what we learned in the previous classes, we saw about many people, like we saw about what was Copernicus feeling about what was his definition. We also saw Aurobindo, right? What was his definition towards education? What did Aurobindo say? He had it's not only about we teaching children, but we need to also make sure that we have a strong mind. Not only the strong mind, we should have a strong soul also. He says you need to connect with both of them. But Aristotle doesn't talk about the soul. He only talks about the healthy body and healthy mind. He talks about you need to have a sound mind in a sound body. This is what Aristotle says. Following by that, Copernicus also says we need to develop the children as a complete personality. For the overall development, whatever is required is what you do. And Confucius, he says that, you need to always see children in such a way that they would realize the illustrious virtue of it. So we need to understand, we need to role model. What children see, they become. What children adapt, they become, right? So what we need to do as adults is like, let's be a little bit more conscious when we are with young children. So this is what we say. And who talks about character development? It is Dayanand Swami. He talks about you need to work on building children's morals, values. You need to work more on the characteristics. From there, we also saw what was Gandhiji's point of view. He said it's whoever it is. Take any personality, but get the best of that child. So when you bring the best of the abilities in a young child, he can become the best personality. He can become a best woman or a best man, right? Because you're working not only on your body, but you're working on your mind and spirit. So here is one of the trick that you can remember. Okay. Mind and body is always Aristotle. Mind and soul is Aurobindo. Mind, body, and the soul, the spirit is Gandhiji. Now we got the differences. Now we should be able to immediately keep all these three things in mind. From there, we move to another personality, that's Herbert. Now, Herbert is one of such an amazing personality. He talks more about developing morality. Now, what's morality? Moral values. ethically, how we, am I really good at ethics? Do I follow something? Like in case if my parents tell me if somebody beats me, I also go and beat that person and come back. So ethically, is it correct? No. What is my behavior? I'm being more aggressive, I'm being more violent. Is this what has been taught? Maybe yes. So ethically, I'm doing wrong, right? So it is wrong. This should not be my moral value that needs to be taught. So I have to tell and educate my children how to behave. So we here emphasize not only on education, but we also emphasize on developing a child's character. Isn't that our responsibility, parents' responsibility, teachers' responsibility, wherever they are? Because children do not know. They don't know how to value honesty. They don't know how to respect. They don't know how to listen to your commands. Do you definitely face problems with younger children? Definitely, yes. Today, I have to honestly accept that I was in a toddler class. Like children are like 3.5 years of age. No fear of anybody, no respect for anyone, no honesty. They cannot process the information even if the teacher says this is the wrong behavior that you've been doing at. They cannot sit in one particular place, no sitting tolerance. Now, what happens here is like when you're grouped in a class, when you have 10 children like that who are actually being in this particular mode, the other 10 would also start looking at them and they can also copy. So, what happens there? So, when you notice this frequently and when you're not able to correct this particular thing, this is where you need to identify where is this behavior coming up from. Me as a teacher, I'm not introducing. This is not the cultural background of my school, but how is my child actually learning? We can definitely look back, definitely talk to the parent about the parenting style. Sometimes they don't take the responsibility in guiding the child when they do wrong. They're like, the child is very small, he would learn. Definitely, he would learn. But when you notice that somebody is jumping on the sofa, you tell that we can't jump over here. When the parent is reluctantly saying this, the child would get it subconsciously. See, we need to have 50 times or more than that of a particular thing to be said. This is how we got to do. That is when the child would also be able to get the responsive time. So here is what we actually talk about in Herbert's principle. Herbert also says that, give more importance to not education, but to the moral values as such. When we start working on that, that becomes really good. Even Locke, okay, the next person, he also says sound mind and sound body, just like our Aristotle. It's almost the same. What about my Pestalozzi? Pestalozzi says progressive development. See, nothing can be happening in one day, right? We can't change something in one day. Even the children don't say change in one day. Can they change in one day? It is not possible for children to actually change in one day. So what happens here? What Pestalozzi says here is like he says, okay. Can somebody read it to me? What does he say? Uh, am I right? Is this the same thing? My book is not open. Is it the what he says
Education,
about? Yeah, please read.
education as the natural, harmonious, and progressive development of man's innate powers.
Okay,
Pestalozzi.
that's amazing. Okay, Pestalozzi says it's natural. That means we are not forcing. When you go out, say for example, when you're going on a mountain trek, we know for trekking, you definitely need something to be worn, right? You need to have a sturdy shoes, you need to have that stamina, you need to carry a water bottle. Now, what if I have not educated you on this? But you still know you're going on a mountain trek. Won't you still know that you need to do this or you need to carry this? Now, what if Shika doesn't carry? The next time she's more aware about it. Whenever I go for a trek, I need to carry this because she definitely faced hardships into that. So that's education again. Nobody taught her, but it was her own experience. So it was natural for her. And it is harmonious also, right? So Pestalozzi, he's a Swiss person. Okay, he's a Swiss educational reformer. He was more onto this natural development. When I say natural development, we all have our abilities. It's not that nobody is lazy or nobody is not willing to do something. We always have our abilities, but we don't want to tap and wake it up, right? So that we all have potential to do something, but still we do not want to accept. We're like, you're worried, you're shy, you're timid, you don't know what is actually halting you. But what happens there? You yourself are not able to identify your innate potential. Everybody has that. So only when you experience that through your hands-on exercises, you'd be able to get it. So children will also be in such a way. We're not working on rote memorization here, but children will start learning through their experience. When I say harmonious development, harmonious is what? Anything that develops overall development for a child. Maybe it's IQ, intellectual development, emotional development, social, physical development. Everything has to be, together. It has to come towards the harmonious development for a child. And why does he say progressive? Because we are not learning one day, 2 day, right? So what we need to do, we need to build on. What was taught yesterday, I build on. From the previous knowledge, I build on. So it has a process, it has a logical progression. You cannot jump to words if you have not taught them the letters. You cannot jump to sentences if you have not taught them the words. Similarly, if you have not taught them the discipline, the basic routines of how you need to work in your classes, your classroom management will become pathetic. You will not be able to control, because one day you did not control, the second day you did not control, the third day you did not control, the fourth day it becomes very difficult. So is it a progressive development? No. Day one you said, day two you said, day three you said. So there is a different kind of developmental needs, and you as a teacher also worked on to educating your child to sustain that developmental thing. So Pestalozzi was like, great influence he was in this particular modern times. Okay, so that was one of the things. Can we read on the next one, please? Someone, can you please read? Who's the next person? Niveta, can you please read?
Education as training the intellect, refinement of the heart and discipline of the spirit. Radha Krishnan.
Okay. So did you understand here? It is training. It's not educating, but we have to train. What do we train? We have learned something, but we are training the intellect. See how beautiful it is. You're training your intelligence. You're refining your heart. And he also says the discipline of the spirit. So that means, I don't know how to say, this is more little spiritual kind. You need to have that discipline in your life. Otherwise, you will never be able to train your intellect. Now, see, whenever it comes down to intellectual development, it is directly linked with your academics or anything that you're going to be learning new. Because that needs a lot of thinking skills for you. Say, for example, if I ask you go and buy something and come from the shop, you need to be able to analyze how far is it, how do I go? What is the weather? Should I wear my boots, or should I carry an umbrella, or what it is? You have to analyze. So you need to have that ability to think critically. Okay. And then whatever is the information that you get it, you should be able to analyze that information. Okay. My mother asked me to get this chocolate. What is the second thing? If I don't have this chocolate in that shop, are you capable to solve the problem there? Some children know, especially my elder one, whenever he was very young, when we used to ask him to go get something and come, he used to go. When it was not, he used to come back. Was least bothered even to check in the next store. Okay, that means the problem solving skill the child had not developed at that particular time. So, as parents and teachers, if you give them this ability, so this is what is called training the intellect. So, it needs a systematic learning thing. So, that means you need to understand the world. If you don't understand the world, it becomes very, very difficult for you to cope up with any subject. This is what he says. Radhakrishna says, like, give children more on the, what is that? Knowledge on understanding the world. That's how you would be able to train the intellect. And what about the heart? How do I refine my heart? How do I refine my heart? What does he mean? Refine your heart. We always, be light-hearted. Don't take it into your heart. My hearty wishes to you. Why do we say on that lighter note? Why do we say that? Everything is related to how you feel. If I started my class by scolding everyone, how would you feel? Bad, right? So I was. Yes, Purni.
No. Wholeheartedly doing the thing.
Wholeheartedly doing it. Yes. Now, wholeheartedly doing is different, and wholeheartedly not doing is different.
Yes.
Correct? So when I have to refine my heart, my education is all about, even if I don't like coming down to my session, we're all forced to come to the session because I've invited, right? So you have managed your emotion, you are showing an empathy, and at the same time, you're also being compassionate, right? I know some of you are tired, some of you are feeling sleepy, some of you have some other work, but still everybody managed to come back here. What happens here is like we are still touching upon the kindness, we're still touching upon the integrity, we are all holding up, we're still respecting one another and keeping our mics muted. All these things are refining your heart and it is making you a wonderful human being. What about the discipline of the spirit? Now, this is something a big word. See, you need to understand, unless and until you do not understand these words, it becomes very difficult for us to know in depth what these people actually meant. Because sometimes in your exams, they might ask you, what was this principle? Can you brief about it? Then what would you do? So every word carries a lot of weightage over there. So when I'm talking about discipline, we all know discipline is what? How I would manage my behavior. How am I focusing? How do I face my challenges? But what is that discipline of the spirit? Spirit, when I say it is again on my spiritual awareness. I have to first know why am I doing this? So I would encourage a sense of purposefulness. I'm aware of what I'm trying to do. I'm connecting something with each one of you greater than oneself, right? So for my moral integrity, I'm guiding each of my students to act in a particular way. All this is somewhere leading to the discipline of the spirit. Correct? So this was Radhakrishna's vision, and he put everything into practice, not only on the curriculum, character education, experience learning, mindfulness. That's how we become a little bit more light-hearted. So for that, he also, if you go to his ashram, okay, they still have a lot of meditation, mindfulness. They cultivate activities and awareness programs for your inner discipline. It's not you're disciplining others. You would discipline your own self. Wake up at a particular time, do this particular task, do this, do this, do this. They say, na, 21-day challenge. You do this, you can do it for the rest of your life. When you break somewhere, you start again from 1. So you can begin with waking up at 5:30 or 5 o'clock, making up your bed and sitting down and relaxing and meditating for 5 minutes. Do this for 21 days. Then add on to a new goal. So that means what happened? You're being mindful and at the same time, you're trying to reflect on your inner discipline. So this is what Radhakrishna says. Education is all about you. First, you educate yourself. Only then you will be able to educate others. Okay. So we train our intelligence, we keep our hearts light, and we practice a lot of spiritual discipline. Correct? Okay. Can we go to the next point, please?
Education as the purification of the mind and the heart. Ramakrishna Swami.
Purification of the mind and heart. Very much nice. See, Ramakrishna is a spiritual leader. Correct? So we know about that. No doubt on it. So since he is a spiritual person, you can write down there. He's a spiritual person. The more he is spiritual, what happens? He will talk more on mind. He will talk more on soul. He will talk more on spiritual growth, empathy, compassion, controlling your emotions, all of that. So you can consider all of that. Okay. Next point, please.
Education as noble thought. Rig Veda.
Education as noble thought.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we are going to Vedas now. Okay, so whenever we are talking about Vedas and Upanishads and other things, what happens? It is a elevated thinking. So a little bit more wider, because for every little thing, you would have something or someone to idealize. Now, say suppose if I'm like following Purni for a very long time, I would keep her as my idol. Maybe Purni wakes up at 4 o'clock in the morning and she chants shlokas. Okay. She keeps telling and she does that religiously, and I'm following her and I'm watching her, I'm listening to her. It is so peaceful. Another thing. I tried multiple times, it did not happen. What is my elevated thinking? I should also do something like her. So she is still doing it, not for herself, but she comes back and tells to Shika, she tells to Leena, she tells to Sharada, everybody. Now what happens? even though they all had that mundane ability of not doing it, they started getting inspired. So Lena starts to do, Shika starts to do. What about me? Now I will also start getting inspired more, because the more the people with one particular vision, one particular idealism, and everybody's ideal is Purni. So what happened? We all got that aspiration. So what is she doing? She is giving me a lot of wisdom. She's also giving me a lot of knowledge, isn't it? So that's more factual. So this is what I would be able to work on. So in Rigvedas, we always talk about taking one person, idealize what is their virtue, what is their ethics, how do I enlighten myself by understanding their principles, so that you get connected with that person. So that's what people have it also, right? So you can take any person as an ideal person. Okay, so that's according to Rigveda. So it's like universalism. They say universal brotherhood. You remember? Vasudeva Kutumbakam. That is what they say. The world is one family. That means we all are strongly united with compassion. So once you start realizing that, you start knowing the purpose of your life. And you will still start thinking, how small you are, how small your thoughts are. So your Vedas and everything will teach you only about that. They say nothing, you're nothing in front of the nature. Once you start to live in the harmony with the nature, you start respecting the entire world. Naturally, it comes with you naturally. That's what they say, whenever you are stressed, when you go to any therapies, what would they do? They put your feet in the mud. Have you taken any sand therapy, mud therapy? They actually put you. So why do we have all these allergies and problems and other things? When you are, what do you call that? Panchabhutas, no? When they are disaligned, when you don't connect to the nature directly, your body doesn't connect with your nature. You can't feel the breeze. You're always in the room. You can't feel the fresh air. You get some or the other problems. Okay? You're not walking barefoot. So your senses to stimulate to the natural earth and the ground, you don't have that sensations. You will definitely have a lot of problems there. When you don't feel the heat and other thing, definitely your vitamins, supplements would be reduced. Your vitamin D deficiency would be there. So you should always get that. So Vedas would always tell each one of you to respect that, be in harmony. Go in the nature, walk. If it's drizzling, feel the rain. The more that you are connected with nature, you will be more immune. So that is what is education also about, wherein we tell to children. These days it's very difficult. Even if the child touches the mud, they will be like, go wash your hands and come. But what should be the education? When you touch something, that's okay. But when you're trying to put something into your mouth with the dirty hands, it's a problem. That is when you have to go wash your hands and come. Unless and until you don't put your hands into your mouth, that's absolutely okay. You can still play with mud. Your hands can still be dirty. That's absolutely okay. That is what we have to educate our children. So that becomes a value-based curriculum. How many schools do that? There are schools who do that. If you see, Basiludes is a good follower of Rigveda systems. It's one of the new school. Okay, so they follow a lot of Vedic ways of teaching for children. So their day begins with shlokas and all of that. They have a pandit in their school. 21 pandits in the school. Just imagine. That morning assemblies are chants. It will be like homas and havans, like how they do it on these days, right? So there are schools like that. They start their day. It is so good. When I attended their assembly, I was mind blown. I was like, I've given an opportunity that this school was there when my children were studying. Definitely, I would have put that. The morning beginning is so good. It's vibrating with positive energy. There are schools. You can check with Amrita ma'am because her daughter has recently joined there. So they have. It's not about preaching shlokas. It's about bringing that positivity. Okay, so that is one of the things. So some of the schools do have those value-based curriculums, which is totally based upon somebody's ethics, their values, their noble systems, and they bring that into the curriculum and then we teach. We had it in our schools, like, we used to have lessons on Gandhiji, we used to have lessons on Dayananda Swami, in our moral value period. We used to read about that personality. We still have books. I don't know how many of you all had those books. All the greatest personalities was the chapters. So that's the reason I can connect with these people so very well, even after so many years. My teachers made it like a wonderful story, about these people. Even now we can feel that kind of the spirituality in our moral classes. Okay, so this is something that is missing these days. People don't take a personality idealize and teach. Okay, so that's one. Okay, can you please tell me the next one? So that was Rig Vedas. Yes. Tell me the name of the person also.
Education as development from within. Rosa. Rosa.
Rausya. Okay. So education as development from within. Correct?
Yes,
From
ma'am.
within. Correct? So this is something that you should be able to tell for yourself. What is your interest? When I ask each one of you, Lina says, I'm good at coloring, or I'm good at painting, or I'm good in talking. So I need to first make that quality grow a little. Okay, so it is Rosia always says, he's a prominent philosopher, I could say. Okay, so that means what happens? What was the child's potential and the ability? I need to take a deeper look into that. As a teacher, what you would do, instead of putting standards and expectation, this is what you have to do, you have to score only 100. No, we don't do that. So what we do, we custom make our curriculum. Whatever is the required need for the child, whatever is the interest for that particular child, and the pace at which the child will be able to read and write. We only look into that. So only then what happens, the child's curiosity will start building. They'll ask more questions on that. They're more better in that. Now, if you see, IB schools are mostly on this. Most of the IB schools are basically depending on the naturalism in the education. When children move out abroad, they don't have to study all the subjects. Whatever subject that they are interested in, they experiment with that and they pick up one particular stream, whatever they are curious in, and they start building up their interest. So they don't have to do everything. They do have the freedom to explore. They do have the freedom to choose. But again, in that choice, the child should do a holistic development. Physical activity on that, emotional activity on that, intellectual activity on that, moral values on that. See, if you want to become a doctor, a gynecologist, what should be your ethics? You will not relieve the gender, no matter who it is. Correct? So that is your ethics and the morals that you actually follow it. Is it related to your emotions there? Somebody is your friend and would you lose out that particular principle? No, we don't do that, right? So these are something that you will be taking up. So that talks about Rossia's principles. Yes. The next person, please. I think after Rossia, it is Socrates, I guess. Correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Yeah.
Education as dispelling error and discovering truth. Socrates.
Okay. What do we understand by this? Dispelling error and discovering the truth. First, let's decode. Discovering the truth.
Finding the truth.
Finding the
Finding
truth.
the real.
Correct. Finding the truth. Like say, suppose in case if we had a situation in the class, correct? So we don't know who's telling the truth and who's lying actually about it. So we need to understand. So as a teacher, you should also be able to understand. Maybe the eye connect. There are tips and tricks that teachers used to use. No, when can the child lie? When the eyebrows are closer, they might be lying, right? And when they start looking up, maybe they're thinking about the words. They're not spontaneous, so maybe they are lying. So there are a lot of things that a teacher should know about it also. So that is a dialectical process. Because the more that the children will start debating to refine what it is and other things, you should be able to get to know, understand who's telling the truth and other thing. So Socrates' principle was more on discovering the truth. Truth is not only about what I could say in these situations, but say suppose say suppose if you're talking about the principles of anything, maybe gravitational force or anything, but are there any areas which is uncovered? You're getting me? Truth is not about who's lying and who is telling me the truth. It's about discovering the truth is in case if you have a situation or if you have a study, if something is uncovered, but something that is truth, maybe because of that that is happening, but nowhere it has been recognized, nowhere that idea has been defined. So your stream of education should be in discovering that area wherein you start learning. When you start learning about that, what happens? Your process is little longer. So you go deeper into it, you start putting more research into it. Correct? Now look at your pursuit of knowledge there. Relentless knowledge, isn't it? So depending upon how much you're studying, the fundamental question will still be there. What if this has not happened? What if that has not happened? What if this was the reality? So this was his method of discovering the truth. But what is dispelling the error? Dispelling the error is like, say, don't go by assumptions. Okay? Don't go by assumptions. So Anita comes and tells me, Shika is like this. What if I believe I will go with her words? I don't have to do that. So this is coming under dispelling error. Never go to check on anybody's ability just by assuming, just by because of their beliefs. So don't go by that. So always Socrates has questioned a lot of misconceptions. He has always worked on clarifying thinking. He always worked on self-examination. So before you do something and submit, you examine yourself. You understand, you recognize where are your mistakes, you correct it. So that was related to dispelling the error and discovering the truth. Can we go to the next point, please?
Education as preparation for complete living. Spencer.
Education as preparation for the complete living. Okay.
Yes.
So this is again, I can say it is like a combination or a summary of everybody, right? Morals, values, everything. So whatever is required for a complete living, that is my education. So what do all I need for my education? I need to be strong physically, intellectually, emotionally, morally. I should have good communication skill. I should have a lot of practical life skills, right? I have to adapt to different circumstances. I have to continuously learn through my life. Whatever you want, you can write here. So that's the complete one. Let's move to the next one. Not much difference over here, okay? He says it's a complete living, whatever we require for it. Can we go to the next one, please?
Education is making life in harmony with existence. Tagore.
Rabindranath Tagore, okay. Education as making life
In harmony with existence.
in harmony with existence. Okay, how do I put harmony with existence? Okay. Can somebody elaborate a little bit more on this? Harmony with existence. See, anytime it is harmony, we can link it with nature because we have to coexist with the natural world. Correct? Yeah. Harmony with nature, with existence. I'm not getting the rightful words. Can somebody tell me, please? Harmony with existence. Sometimes the mind will not work. Okay, shalom. We'll Google. We'll Google. Just give me a minute. Let's Google. What does he say?
Education is
Okay. Okay, so according to Google, what they see is, okay. So it says like, Rabindranath Tagore was actually talking about developing the entire person. Okay, let me read through it. Okay, now I get it. Okay. Shanti Niketan School. Okay. See, you have to always remember some tips and suggestions. Okay. So, okay, let's get back. Okay, whatever I know, I would explain. So I don't want to read anything about this. Okay. See, coming down to Tagore, he started a school. You all know Shanti Niketan? Shanti Niketan is a school which actually followed some kind of a educational philosophy. And where is this particular school? So we also have seen Vishwabharati University. He's also started that. Vishwabharati University also. Now, what do they bring here in both of these centers? Be it Shantiniketan School or be it Vishwabharati University, his entire agenda was to bring multiple people from different parts, from the east and from the west. Now, east is all us Asians, west is all the outsiders. Now, what happens when you combine the East and the West? What happens? There is a lot of transition between your traditions. There is a lot of differences between the education styles and other things. So, what happens here is like the value systems do not change. Your moral values do not change, but the methodology, the education is actually changing. So, here in his ashram, in his school, in the Vishwabharati University, what was a major thing that we always or they always practiced was global exchange. Global exchange. When I say global exchange, if I'm teaching French, I exchange learning French with something else. I teach my children French. If I'm learning Japanese, I can also treat Japanese. I can also talk about the program. So, what we did or what happens in these two particular universities, there is a global exchange program. That means there are collaborations between students, collaborations between different schools, and collaborations from the different parts of the world. So, look at here. Rabindranath Tagore, he was the one who actually gave a lot of nature-based learnings also. Not only onto education, he said education is also about arts. He brought arts into the picture. So that's the reason the university became so famous. Shantiniketan, if you see, that was one of the oldest school for arts. It was one of the oldest school for music and dance especially. And literature became into the curriculum only after this particular person. Now you need to always connect. Okay, so I don't know how I forgot this connect. I will always connect people with some keywords. From there, the story just goes. So always connect Tagore with his two universities. Okay, so two institutes. One is Vishwabharati and the other one is Shantiniketan School. Then you will start understanding. The moment it is schools, global exchange programs would come, mindfulness would come, yoga was there, interdisciplinary learning was there in the schools. So that means, what was my saying? What did Niveta say here? He said that making your life in harmony. If I'm good in music, I go with music lessons. If I'm good in some other subjects, I can actually pick up from that. Right? So I'm making my life exist in harmony with what I like. Now you're able to connect the meaning and the relevance of what Tagore said. From there, Vivekananda also gets links. Okay, that's the closest connect to what his principle is and what is Tagore's principle. Now, can somebody read what does Vivekananda